so this is one of the best relinquished decks that I've made so far. Has some of the craziest stuff in here. You can do just about everything. It's basically a branded Ishizu Punk relinquished deck. Everything about it just works. The Punk engine can mill cards. Milling cards in this particular deck. The relinquished cards work well in the graveyard. Um, the only thing that doesn't work well in the graveyard is the branded engine, but the branded engine helps you get key pieces into the graveyard but it's only one piece at a time, but it gets key pieces into the graveyard, puts a Mirror Jade on the field, which is already kind of hard for players to deal with. The branded engine literally just puts out just Mirror Jade by itself, and then it just acts as some follow up cards behind it to kind of interrupt your opponents during their turn, but most of the time it's just really Mirror Jade. So Mirror Jade plus um, the Relinquish in this particular deck happening all the time, hard for your opponents to deal with. So I go ahead and go into Baron de Floor, which is one of the benefits to running the Punk engine in here, is you can get access to that level 10 Synchro, and then also access to the Mirror Jade right here. And then I'm going to go into the Mirror Jade right here. So Millennium Eyes are strict. So let's look at what we got here. So we got a Ash Blossom hand trap, Mirror Jade for the banish. We got a negate, quick effect monster negate basically. I can grab that monster and then they can't use it. They can't really use hand traps against me because you can grab all those monsters. So super good for that one. And then we also have a Omni negate here. And then this card right here can allow me to go back into this card again. Now I only run one of these in the deck, so is this card a dead card? Well, I also have Keldo right here in my graveyard. So Keldo can shuffle this back if it gets destroyed, flip this over, and then resummon it right back out with the same exact material that I used to make it in the first place by banishing that plus Nemesis Keystone. Nemesis Keystone would go from the banish zone back into my hand in the end phase. So it's basically free materials that's an extender for me. And then also, like I said, I have the shuffler in my graveyard, and then I also set my graveyard up with Thousand Eyes restricts. So if I do get access to Millennium Eyes Illusionist, basically I'll be able to start doing some shuffling or some rotation type of plays with those two cards themselves. And since I activate this card to banish, when I activate this to banish, I'll actually get access to the Branded Fusion again. So then that way I can use Branded Fusion to basically send that card to the graveyard for free. So my opponent is going to activate a Sky Striker Kagari. Doesn't really do much for him. And then he summons his Kaiju, attacks into my Mirror Jade. He probably forgot about the effect that it destroys everything in the end phase. Pretty much just scoops. Now, what could he have possibly done? I don't know. Don't actually know. Let's show the deck list. So here's the deck that I was playing. Has a ton of different avenues in here. A lot of different cards, a lot of different starters. Basically, your starters are your 2 Xiamens, your 2 emergency teleports, your 3 branded fusions. All of those are starters. This card kind of acts as an extender. This card acts as an extender. Um, this card acts as an extender because all of your main starters don't really use your normal summon except for just normal summoning out Xiamen, but there are access to 5 starters in this deck that don't use your normal summon. The other 2 is just the Xiamen play just by normal summoning. So it's kind of like when you just don't have access to one of these, or if they get negated in some kind of way and you just have to settle for just normaling out this. So those are kind of your main plays. You still do have other cards that can act as extenders in this particular deck. Sometimes you'll draw 2 of these cards, 2 of the Shizus. You can use one's effect to discard one to special summon the other one, and then normal summon something, go into Predaplant Verde Anaconda, and then when you do so, you can literally just go straight into Mirror Jade from there. So you get access to Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade can give you some follow-up plays by just sending Albion, and then you get another Branded Fusion, and then you're able to start sending key pieces that you need to send once you activate Branded Fusion. So there's so many different avenues to this particular deck. You could also normal Diviner, send Kelbeck or Agito, or you can send this card to the graveyard and then find a way to get to Sprite Elf, revive this card, and then use its effect to send one of these two to start milling. Milling in this particular deck is really good. There are so many different cards in this deck that benefit from being in the graveyard. I'll go through the list. So, one is Golden Eyes Idol. Golden Eyes Idol. If you banish this card with Fairy Tale Snow, or just if you banish it while you're on your opponent's turn, let's say you activate Fairy Tale Snow, you banish this card, they may imperm this, or not imperm it. If they have imperm on the field, they may imperm it, whatever the case. But they may negate this card, but they never see this card coming because when it activates, it's banished, so it's hard for them to do anything about it. But it allows you to snatch one of your opponent's cards during your opponent's turn with this card. Does that make sense? So basically, so basically, you can use this card to grab something, use this card to flip something face down for your opponent. So it's kind of like two things kind of happen at once. This card right here, if it's in the graveyard and then you summon out your Millennium Eyes Restrict, this card adds itself from your graveyard to your hand. So it's good to mill this, which is why you want to start off whenever you play with your milling first. So then that way you can mill this card to the graveyard. If it is milled when you summon out your Millennium Eyes Restrict, it'll basically add this back to your hand. This card, if it's in the graveyard, which is good to get milled when you do your Punk Engine, basically it'll allow you to go into Baron the Floor, your level 10 Synchro. If this card's milled, you can revive it with Sprite Elf, and then you can mill more cards with your Shizu Engine or put shufflers into the graveyard, right? The shufflers will give you good recursion. Then, if this card is milled, this is basically the easiest way to just relinquish fusion with this card being milled to go into your Millennium Eyes Restrict. Now, you could run two of these in case something happens to one and you want to get it back out quickly. But I just have so many ways to getting back to this card again. Through Nemesis Keystone, just quickly unbanishing with Necroface if it gets banished. If it's in a graveyard, I can just always shuffle it back with the shufflers. So just so much access to getting it back onto the field. Then Fairy Tale Snow, of course, I shouldn't even have to explain why if that's in the graveyard it's important. Your two shufflers being in the graveyard, very good. This card being in the graveyard when you go into your Relinquished Fusion, basically it'll create like a loop that happens to where it'll keep looping between this card and this card, or this one, whichever one you prefer, and then it makes it extremely hard for your opponents to deal with, which is why I actually summoned this monster out first and then went into normaling this and then using this as materials, because I wanted to basically get this card off the field, put this one on the field, and then I was going to use the Branded Fusion for follow-up to send this card, so then that way I can start looping with this one. So if they start attacking, I can basically summon this one out. If they crash into this card, I can just put this out and it'll basically end their battle phase, basically. Yeah. So all of those being in the graveyard have graveyard effects. And then there is spell graveyard effects. This card being in the graveyard can grab an opponent's monster if you have a Millennium Eyes Restrict on the field. You tribute this card right here or banish it, and then you can grab one of their monsters. And then this card right here being in the graveyard will allow you to shuffle back 5 cards instead of 3. Also, it'll give you like extra effects with Kelbeck and Agito. With Agito, you can mill 5 more cards. With Kelbeck, you can set a trap, which this trap right here is one of the best traps for this particular deck because it allows you to use, this card and where is it at? Oh, this one here or this one, whichever one you choose, and basically swap out one of these with this card and one of your opponent's cards and put back whatever you want as far as spellcaster goes. So you can put it right back onto the field if you wanted to, but you get to send something off your opponent's side of the field. So you can basically reset these cards, or you can even summon this out if it's still in your deck using this particular card. So you don't always have to have this card in the graveyard. So that can be a good turn one to set this card and then summon this card out. So when your opponent's normal summon something, you can basically swap it out. So super good, and just milling it and then setting it directly from the graveyard can be absolutely crazy. Sometimes your opponents just don't know what to do. They don't know how to deal with a lot of this stuff. So it's a deck that really flows together quite well. Almost everything in this deck helps. Being able to just activate Branded Fusion and basically send Hex Seal Fusion to the graveyard right away. And if you have this card in hand, literally that gives you a Mirror Jade plus a Millennium Eyes Restrict very easily. Because you go into Libellion. Once you go into Libellion, you just quick activate this. Basically tribute off Libellion on the field plus the Hex Seal Fusion in your grave. You banish both of them, go into this, and then the Libellion effect still going to activate, allowing you to, it's still going to resolve, allowing you to go into your Mirror Jade. So that gives you both monsters on the field, and it shuffles this card back into the deck, so then that way you can use it again later. You can draw into it, mill it, whatever the case may be, which is why running this at 2 could be better. But for whatever reason, I felt that some of these cards are so hard to take out because they're all so important to this deck. All of them have its purpose. Okay, so in case you're still not convinced on that, let me kind of explain the extra deck part of this, right? So this card right here stops your opponent from being able to attack, change monster position, grabs your opponent's monsters. Super powerful card. This card right here, you should already know what to do if you're looking up a Relinquished deck. But if you don't know, monster negate, plus it can grab one of your opponent's monsters if they try to activate, right? And then all of these other cards can kind of help that. Albion can basically, you send Albion, basically grab another Branded Fusion. Mirror Jade is a banish, plus if they destroy it, pops all their cards. Or if they get it off the field, pops all their cards. Libellion, main combo piece for sending, basically you activate Branded Fusion, send something, go into Mirror Jade. It can send your Dark Hex Seal Fusion, or if you already have Dark Hex Seal Fusion in the grave, it can send your Illusionist Faceless Magician, or even your Millennium Eyes Illusionist, or even your Golden Eyes Idol. It can send anything, whatever you feel you need at that moment. You could send it as long as it's a monster, and then you can use that piece against your opponent because they're all dark. That's the important part there. They're all dark. They all can be used. Works perfect with all of them. Muddy Mud Dragon. If you can go to a level 6 tuner, you can make this card right here activate its effect, and then this will allow you to fusion summon into something else. The easiest monster to fusion summon into, to basically use this effect, the smartest monster to fusion summon into, I would say, would more than likely be Libellion. Why Libellion? Why Libellion of all of them? Well, because then you can shuffle these two cards back into your extra deck, and then after you do that, you can go into this, this, or this. Simple enough, right? So then that means you can use these all over again. You can do it again for the simple fact that, hopefully that makes sense. That way you don't even have to use your shufflers at all. Now, you could just go this plus something else straight into whatever monster you want to. If you don't want to do the discard with Libellion, if you can't discard, you just go straight into whatever. So you can always do that too. But I just think that going into Libellion and shuffling something that's in your graveyard or banished back into the deck, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to shuffle this back, but you have that option to do so. If you have something banished that you just want to put back into the deck, you can do that. So it's pretty cool. Then We got Desert Locust right here. Desert Locust. You basically summon this, go into a level 6 instead of going into Muddy Mud Dragon. Summon this onto the field. Leave it on the field. End your turn pretty much. And if you got Fairy Tale Snow, on your opponent's turn, you can literally just flip something face down with this and then use Desert Locust's quick effect ability to go into Baron the Floor on your opponent's turn. So then you get to flip something face down with this card and then get an Omni Negate for them not getting rid of this quick enough. Sometimes they'll see it on the field and they'll try to start building their board, flip something face down, and then you just level 6 tuner that can synchro summon on your opponent's turn at a quick effect speed. Perfect, right? Then what else do we got? So then we have Psyframe Lord Omega. This card can unbanish stuff. I think this is one of my favorite cards in this particular deck because this gives you access to being able to use your shufflers more frequently. So what you can do is activate this card to unbanish one of your shufflers, then take something out of your opponent's hand. Then you can use your shuffler, banish it again, and then basically unbanish or take cards out of your graveyard, put them back into the deck that you need. Important pieces, good for recursion. This card right here, really good for recursion, especially when you've already used your Punk engine for your main combo lines. You can basically just use this to stay in the game longer, if that makes sense. Then we got Chaos Ruler. Of course, you guys saw in the video how I use Chaos Rulers, basically just to start milling. And then also it can get you to your Baron de Floor, your level 10 Synchro, if you mill this card, or if you just normal this and don't activate its effect while you have Chaos Ruler, then you can just go into Baron de Floor. And you can always just revive this card back if you don't use this effect with Sprite Elf. So hopefully that makes sense. Psychic and Punisher. This is like one of the most powerful cards in the deck. Literally you can just like insanely boost the attack of this thing. You can put you don't even have to, like, you already lose so much life just doing your normal stuff. When you go into Predator Plant Verde Anaconda, that's 2,000 life points gone. When you go into your Punk Xiamen, that's 600 life points gone. So just doing that alone, when you go to finally make this card, if you're at a life deficit, literally boost this card up and it becomes unaffected by everything. Its attack will be so insanely high, and if you don't have kill, you don't have to attack with this card. You can literally get that boost in the battlefield phase and then just end your turn. It'll be unaffected on your opponent's turn. They won't be able to really do anything about it. They have to like kaiju it or something. You can take that risk if you want to, and then on the next following turn, when they go to their battle phase to clear out whatever else monsters you got, you boost it again, and then on your turn you boost it again, and then you just kill them. And they can't do anything because it's unaffected. It's basically like playing it's basically the same like when people use I can't think of the name of that card right now. The one that people used to use that they put it in defense, and Crooked Cook. It's just like Crooked Cook pretty much. You make the attack on that thing insanely high to where they can't attack over it, and it's unaffected by anything as long as your life points remain lower, and it'll just continuously boost attack. So when you finally do attack with that thing, if they've been attacking you and they got their monsters in attack position, you just attack the weakest monster and kill them for game. So insanely good. Psychic and Punisher is really powerful. Hope Harbinger, this card right here, insanely good. If you summon out Hope Harbinger, you don't have to go into Zombie Vampire. This is a mill 4 basically, and special summon one of the monsters if there was a monster that got milled. But Hope Harbinger is like insanely good because when you summon out Hope Harbinger, it's a spell negate. Not only is it a spell negate, but it's a redirection of attack. So when your opponents go into attack, when your opponents declare an attack, basically you can detach one material from this and then make it attack this card instead. So what that means is what most players do is they normal summon something and then attack into your Millennium Eyes Restrict and then they pop off. Well, this will prevent them from being able to do that because when they normal summon something, usually it's not going to have more than 3,000 attack. No, most monsters don't just normal summon like that. And if they activate an effect to try to summon something from a monster, then literally you can negate it. They activate a spell effect, negate it, and then it'll add it to material for this card, which gives you another redirect. So it just makes it insanely hard for your opponents to do anything by when you summon Hope Harbinger plus the Millennium Eyes Restrict. Plus, you might have access to this to grab a monster. You may also have this plus this to be able to banish this card and then grab another monster. So, super funny. Then, if they activate a monster effect, grab another monster with this card. So, you could potentially grab 3 cards from their side of the field during their turn. Hopefully, that makes sense. I've done it before too. So, grab 3 monsters on their turn. And you could potentially do that turn 1. That can be a potential setup. And you can actually use this card to pretty much get something off their field as well with it. You can start off by clearing something off their field if you got this set. So then let's go into the next monster. Well, we already talked about this one. We got Predator Plant Verde Anaconda. Of course, that's useful for going into Branded Fusion, going into Instant Fusion, going into Relinquished Fusion if you just don't draw it. And then Sprite Elf, of course, to revive back Diviner each time so you can get those meals, or to send your shufflers so you can get cards back into your deck if you use up all your Branded Fusions. So that's why I don't really have space for putting 2 of these. I could take this one out and put 2 of these, but I would prefer to have 1 of each because this card does definitely come in clutch sometimes, especially when you're doing the Psychic and Punisher boost thing that I was talking about, where basically Psychic Punisher, you just allow it to just boost up during the battle phase, and you have other monsters that you don't want to get attacked into. So you may have Psychic and Punisher on the field plus Hope Harbinger. You don't want them to crash into Hope Harbinger, but you want to keep boosting this up. You can just stall if you wanted to. Or you may have this on the field plus this, and you don't want them to crash into this, but you just want to just keep whatever monster with this and then just use this as a negate. Whatever playstyle you have, if you want to just banish all day with Mirror J, banish everything they got, and use this as a stall, you can do that too. It's just so many different playstyles, so many different avenues. This deck does so much, so fun to play, and I think that playing it in this way, the support is like fun. So hopefully this gave y'all some ideas. And if you try this deck out, let me know your success. If you think there's anything that I could put in this deck to make it better, let me know. If you think this deck sucks, don't let me know because I don't care. But I'm just trying to show y'all something that I thought would be fun to play, fun to try out at least. So hopefully this inspires something out there. And I am trying to be creative with the ways that I make my decks. So catch y'all on the next one. Peace.